Now, as we've been hearing, Boris Johnson's been chairing a meeting of the Emergency Cobra Committee to finalise new COVID restrictions for England. It's thought there'll be a three-tier alert system, with Liverpool facing the tightest measures. Well, journalist Josh Wing is in Nottingham, which is the highest rate of cases in England. Hello, Josh.
Hello.
Just how bad is the situation in Nottingham?
I think it's took everyone by surprise, to be honest. I believe there's 830 cases per 100,000 people at the moment, which is the highest. And it's skyrocketed as well. At one point, we were below the national average in terms of cases. And then all of a sudden, in the last few weeks, certainly towards the end of September, we've started to see a massive rise in cases. So I think it's took a lot of people by surprise, even though we knew just how serious the pandemic is.
Is it obvious to you, just anecdotally, why this has happened? Is there a kind of problem with compliance now, and maybe amongst young people?
I think a lot of people have put the blame onto the young people. We do have two very large universities in Nottingham-Trent and University of Nottingham. That probably didn't help in terms of the cases, because obviously you're essentially inviting people from all corners of the country into one city. So I think, that would have definitely made an impact. It does appear that the cases are skyrocketing with younger people, but I think it would be unfair to put the blame solely on them. I think now we are one of the worst, if not the worst, in the country now. I think it's been a bit of a wake-up call for a lot of people. Certainly over the last weekend in Nottingham, the streets have been very quiet. The inner city centre shops and bars and clubs and restaurants have been a lot more quieter. And I think towards the end of lockdown, certainly in the summer period, it was very, very busy, and it almost felt like people were bouncing back and wanted to crack on with their lives. And unfortunately, now we're in this situation. I think people are starting to realise that it's not over yet.
And how's the health service coping?
As far as I'm aware, it's coping quite well. We have two very large hospitals, the City Hospital and the Queen's as well, so that I think they're just about coping. Even though their rate of infection is on the increase, I think in terms of hospital patients, that isn't. And perhaps looking at the three-tier system that's coming into place this week, I personally don't think we'll be in tier 3 purely based on the fact that the hospital rates aren't that bad at the moment.
Nevertheless, politicians from the north of England, and the north takes in an awful lot of the country, doesn't it? Politicians aren't happy, perhaps, about not being consulted about this new three-tier method.
Yeah, and I can't blame them. I think there's a lot of confusion and apprehension as to what is going to be announced. I think they have every right to be part of the plans and to know what's coming into place. You know, certain local authorities feel like they've been left in the dark with it. Especially in Nottingham, it's very concerning for the local councillors and members of parliament that we have such a bad case in terms of the rate of infection in the country, and yet we still don't know what's going to happen. And we can make estimations as to what's going to be announced in these new restrictions, but it's just questions with not a lot of answers, and I think there's a lot of frustration about that.
OK, Josh, thanks very much for speaking to us. That's Josh Wing, speaking to us from Nottingham.